So we're getting towards the end of day one, and so far I think it's been a very, very good day, so no reason that should change. And thank you all very much for behaving well on the time to be back. It's always difficult with such a large group to make sure that everybody's in the room. So now we go into session 4, learning from monitoring, following the investigations. We go into the monitoring as well, because where can we improve there? And to chair this session, we have Ilaria. Give Ilaria a hand, please. Thank you. Ilaria Castriota, sorry, is a chemical engineer.
Yes.
Long time ago did risk assessments within the chemical industry, so another high-risk sector here.
Yes.
And then you were in aviation, deputy head of safety in Naples Airport. And for the last 20 years within railways,
Yes.
first with the infrastructure manager, and for the last 10 years with ANSFISA, the Italian NSA, National Safety Authority. So, Ilaria, take it on, please.
Thank you, Kim. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this last session. I'm really honored to be here. And so, first of all, I would like to thank the organization for giving me the opportunity to moderate this session, learning from monitoring. And I think it is a very important topic to discuss, to go deeper into, so it is a pleasure for me to be here with you. And you might ask me why I think it is so important, monitoring process, why I am so interested in it. And for explaining it, I would use a metaphor. The metaphor is, I think that the monitoring process is a bit like Cinderella between the safety management system processes. I know some question marks on your face, but I will explain why I use this metaphor. For who doesn't know the story of Cinderella, she's a young girl and she lives with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters. They didn't care of her. She works hard for her family. She works in a very hard context, but nobody takes care of her. And I think that like Cinderella doesn't receive the proper care for her job, the same as well for monitoring process is not often correctly considered. It is easier for railway organization to design and implement the operational processes, more than design and implement correctly the monitoring process. But it's not enough to collect information, to collect data. We have many sources of data. But if we don't design how to manage all this information, how to use them in order to make decisions, and the correct decisions ones, we don't use monitoring process correctly, and probably we can make the wrong decision at the end of the monitoring process itself. So I know that it is the last session, so we are everybody of us is tired, so I would ask you to pay attention carefully to the 3 speakers of this session, because they will show us their points of view on how to learn from monitoring, and be ready for the Q&A session. So if you have a question, take notes, and at the end of the 3 presentations, we can discuss about this topic. So I don't want to waste any more time, and so I will immediately pass the floor to the first speaker. I will introduce Martynas Čekanauskas. I hope to pronounce his family name correctly. Martina is an expert on safety and quality management systems. He also has a great experience in safety risk prevention. He was the former acting head of the National Safety Authority and is currently responsible for the safety of the largest group of railway companies in the Baltics, the LTG. He will share with us his view on how to manage emerging threats to rail traffic safety resulting from changes. Please, Martynas, come on stage, and now the floor is yours.
Hello. First of all, I would like to say that I'm really happy to be here with you and for this opportunity to talk and discuss about such important safety topics these days. And I believe that my topic is one of the most actual topics in our times, because I'm talking about risk management, which I believe is a fundamental activity ensuring railway traffic safety, especially when we are talking about industrial revolutions and geopolitical challenges which are ahead. And I think that in order to better understand this topic, we should start from the history, from the basics, and we should briefly review what challenges and opportunities industrial revolutions brings to our sector. So the first industrial revolution began in the 18th century using steam power and mechanization of production. The railway era begins, the first steam locomotives were produced. So during the first industrial revolution, the first railway tracks were constructed, the first locomotives were produced, and the risks which arised from the first industrial revolution were more technical mean. It was more about the compatibility, interoperability between the railway track and the rolling stock, and the measures in order to mitigate and reduce that risks were more technical. The first technical normative documents were introduced. The second industrial revolution began in the 19th century through the discovery of electricity and land production. The railway network is being expanded and the first signaling systems were being installed. So during the second industrial revolution, the parameters of a railway network has changed. The speed on the mainline railway lines has increased, the speed on the rolling stocks increased as well. And the risks which arise from the second industrial revolution were more technical and human factors orientated. So the measures to reduce that type of risks were implementation of track signaling systems in place. The third industrial revolution began in the 20th century using partial automation, using memory programmable controls and computers. Right now, the traffic centralization is underway. Microprocessor signaling systems are being installed, as well as other important safety systems. So during the third industrial revolution, the big part of a railway network, which we knew right now, has formed. And during that type of changes, the risks which arise from it were more human factors and organizational factors orientated. So safety management systems, locomotive safety management system, and so on were introduced. And right now we are on the edge of a fourth industrial revolution. We are currently implementing it. It is described by the application of information and communication technologies to the industry. And right now, in the different railway subsystems, the Internet of Things is used. Right now, as I know, about 26 billion of devices are connected to the Internet. The big data is collected on which predictive maintenance activities are carried out. And the other functions, such as chat GPT, artificial intelligence, and so on, are used in our day-to-day activities. And I would like to share with you a few practical examples what opportunities does fourth industrial revolution brings to our sector. In LTG, we are implementing predictive infrastructure maintenance activities. We have a new rolling stocks with new tools and new devices and so on, which lets us to detect internal and external rail defects, which let us to detect the rail waviness, measure the rail profile, monitor the railway elements, and measure the railway geometry. And all of the parameters changes and deviations are automatically evaluated, the results are objective, and the measurement data is digitized. Talking about the rolling stock, I could use the term prescriptive maintenance instead of predictive. We have a lot of devices on the rolling stocks, which lets us in the real time to collect information about condition of a bogies, engine, transmission, status of control systems. We also have an internet connection with a Starlink through which passengers could use internet. And all of this data is collected centrally, analyzed with the help of machine learning, according to which prescriptive maintenance decisions are made. The last but not least, I should mention artificial intelligence and chat GPT and what it brings to our sector. Using these tools, we have systemized information in one place. We ensure a continuous self-learning model, as well as I believe that in the near future, no human interaction will be required in preparing the training material and performing the trainings itself. So we briefly reviewed the fourth industrial revolutions and what changes and challenges it brings to our sector. But I think the main question is, what's the difference between them? If you would look closer to this picture, you will notice that the complexity of change during the last industrial revolution increased significantly. Comparing to the time frame in which the changes occurred. So that means that our previously used risk management models are no longer suitable in our cases, so it needs to be updated and reviewed as well. So right now, let's talk a little bit about emerging threats. We are living in a very fast-changing environment where we definitely feel two main pressures. One pressure is to improve our effectiveness in day-to-day activities. The other pressure is to adapt to the external factors and to maintain our competition. That's two main pressures creates the environment in which safety threats could arise. And right now, we have three main areas in which safety threats could arise. It is human and organizational factors, it is regulation activities, it is cyber security threats. And in order to manage these type of threats, you need to have two basic components. It is proactive monitoring and a very well-functioning change management system. And in order to build an effective and risk management model, you need to have a very strong safety leadership, a very mature safety culture, and a very clear and standardized procedure how the risk management and change management will work in your company. So right now, also, I will try to share with you a few practical examples how we build it in our company as I believe, a quite effective risk and change management model. Because these two elements, risk assessment and change management, I think is the key activities in all of our safety management systems. So starting from a strong safety leadership. In LTG, we built a safety leadership from scratch. First of all, we introduced a safety leadership course for existing and new managers at all levels. We prepared the safety leadership training material, which is focused on safe decision-making and risk-based approach. A huge thanks for the European Railway Agency. We have learned a lot from them, how we should develop our safety leaders. The second, we introduced and standardized interactive material to our managers in order to make sure that they will know everything about safety and how to make safe decisions. Secondly, we provided to them a standardized access to all of the safety-related information, such as a common safety targets, common safety indicators, non-compliances, and so on. And the last part, it comes from a safety department itself, assurance of continuous safety communication and assistance in managing safety threats. So that's how in LDG we develop our safety leaders, and a strong and safety leader or leadership creates an environment in which people could trust, could report, could engage in day-to-day activities and in proactive risk management activities. The second element is a high maturity of a safety culture. I think it's one of the most fundamental activities and about which we are talking a lot during these conversations and trainings. I think LTG was among one of the first companies in Europe who participated in safety culture maturity assessment workshops, and our safety culture model is based on European railway safety culture model. And right now we are performing such type of activities once per year. More than 3,000-4,000 people are involved in such type of activities, during which the maturity of a safety culture is determined, the strengths and weaknesses are identified as well. And also an annual action plans are prepared. In order to develop a mature safety culture, I think you need to have a very strong reporting and just culture. So whilst we implementing digitized tools and mobile applications for our employees to report about the safety threats, about non-compliances and so on. From the side of the safety department, during the safety observations, we are trying to understand the workplace reality. We are trying to understand what type of risks arises in the workplace. And we are trying not to control, but we are trying to help our people to manage that type of threats. And the last thing in forming, reporting, and just cultures, it is investigation of events. We are using in our company such tools such as 5Y, fishbone tools, and so on, to determine the real cause of an event. And we have a very detailed checklist according to which, and according to the cause of an event, what the consequence should be selected for the human behavior. One of the most fundamental pillars in creating a very mature safety culture, it is a continuous learning activities. That's why we introduce safety academies in our company. Once a quarter, we perform a safety academy, which is based on the most riskiest safety topics in our company. Usually we have about 10, 15 different topics, and we involve lectures internally and externally from universities, from safety institutions, and so on. Also, once per month, we release the safety newspaper, which is based on the golden safety rules, in which you can find all of the necessary information how the safety rule could be implemented in your workplace. And the last thing, it is a safety instructors, which is presented after incidents, in which we are talking about the positive and negative actions and what recommendations do we have to apply. And we are also trying to learn not even from our accidents, but also from the other industries. And also we need to ensure integration of all of these elements. So we are talking about the cementation and safety vision at all levels. We are talking about inclusion of the safety targets and so on in the business unit strategies. And of course, it is a very actual topic to improve safety topics in managers' meetings at all levels. And we also have safety internships for our managers to make sure that we will know workplace realities. The last thing is to have a very clear risk management procedures. In LTG, we are implementing proactive risk management, which is based on plan, do, check, act, cycle. Once per year, we review all of the safety threats. In one company, we have 5 companies. We are a holding company. We have about 100 safety threats per company. So once per year, we are trying to ensure that all managers will review that type of threats to make sure that we will understand how we estimate that type of risks. We have a unified methodology to clarify that type of safety risks. Top safety risks are identified, and the safety status monitoring plan is placed in service. Then we are preparing a risk management plan. We are trying to implement it. And once per month, we are trying to ensure to see what deviations are from the plan. It's very important to make sure that information about deviations will go from the bottom to the up of our organization. And in the acting phase, if we will see what we have non-compliances and so on, we are implementing preventive measures to make sure that the set values will be reached. And I think talking about proactive risk management, I can say that I would like to mark 3 things. The first thing, I believe that creating a proactive risk management approach, you will need to involve all safety managers, all managers at all levels, and the big part of your employees, because we know the best workplace reality, and we could estimate that type of risks. Preparing a safety status monitoring plan, I think your decisions, what should be included in the plan, should be based how you actually can get true data. You could have a very fancy, for example, a common safety indicators and so on, but you have to make sure that it won't be a burden to get that type of data, and that it really shows what it has to show. And the last thing is communication about non-compliances and so on. You must to ensure that this information goes from bottom to up to the management boards and so on. And then if you have any corrective measures, it should go down and additional measures should be implemented as well. And the last topic, I will be very quick on it. As you understand, when we are talking about the risks which are arising from the change, management procedure differs from day-to-day risk management. In LTG, I think we are right now in one of the biggest changes in our history. We are implementing a free rail program. According to the geopolitical challenges, we are trying to create a wide gauge railway, a new wide gauge railway standard, according to which we will try to make sure that we are independent from the Eastern technologies, from the Eastern countries' communication systems, and from the Eastern countries' operational procedures. So that's why, talking about technological change, this is our way how we are trying to develop that type of a change. First of all, we are trying to divide all of our subsystems into the different elements. For example, if I am talking about the control, command, and signaling subsystems, we have about 700 different elements. We are trying to make sure that we will know a critical elements which are dependent on the Eastern technologies, and we are working in three main areas. We are trying to search for the alternatives in the Western countries. We are trying to assess the possibility to produce some type of elements internally. And we are talking about a change of the technology itself. That's why we have 3 working groups and committees. The first working group is responsible for the assessment of a subsystem, for the suggestion about what critical elements could be replaced. We have a project management board which tries to align all of the different project management activities. We have a technical committee which ensures that our technical decisions will be standardized across all of our business units. And also we have investment management. Implementing that change where risks arise, we are using change management procedure, which is one of the common safety methods. We have huge deals with it because right now we don't have a code of practice, we don't have reference systems, and I think we will form such type of a new practice which we could share later. And we are trying to assure that this change will be managed properly. So we are using independent assessment body, which is internal part of our organization. And then all of these changes will be mitigated. All of the risk goes back to our operational level, to our risk registers. And then we will try to review and reassist these threats again. So that was all. Thank you. And I will wait for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Martynas. And thank you for your very interesting presentation. And now I move to the second speaker of this session, Julia Burggraaf. She has always been fascinated by human behavior. She holds a master's degree in cognitive psychology, but she is also an expert in statistics. And after graduation, Julia worked in a company involved in human factors consultancy and risk management, specialized in bow ties and other barrier-based risk models. She investigated the interaction of human behavior, human error, and safety in the context of rail transportation using big data and psychology. She developed a very interesting research at the safety and security section of the Delft University of Technology and ProRail, the Dutch rail infrastructure manager. And today she'll show us some results of this study. The title of the presentation is Exploring Big Data Effectively in Safety to Identify the Human Factors that Matter Most and Under Which Circumstances. Please, Julia, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Okay, let's dive right in, because I'm excited to talk to you about one of my passions, which is using big data for safety. So this presentation, this 20 minutes, I will give you an introduction in using big data for safety and why you should use it. But of course, getting excited about using big data specifically for safety is only the first step. The second step is learning how do we actually use it effectively. Because there's usually already a lot of hype about using big data, but then we start with all this excitement, and it turns out to be a bit disappointing in the end. So what do we need to do to prevent these disappointments? And this is a very big topic. So I've decided to record this presentation specifically for you. So this is 45 minutes that you can watch at home with some popcorn at any moment you like. The popcorn you should provide yourself. But the link I will give you at the end of this presentation. So I like to introduce myself as a cognitive psychologist who can write code, because I love both of these worlds. On the one hand, I am a cognitive psychologist, and I love human behavior and human factors, so all factors influencing human behavior and safety. But I also like data. I like numbers. I like seeing patterns in numbers and in data. And the third thing that I like is combining these two worlds, because they sometimes feel very different. They sort of have a different language, they tend to have different people. So combining the two is a very interesting challenge, and also very useful. Now, why should we use big data for safety? There is a lot on this slide, but I actually want to frame it a little bit differently. Because today is about safety culture. And we also heard some stories that sometimes, perhaps within leadership, other company goals, like productivity or innovation, are prioritized above safety. And you want to grab these people, shake them around and say, don't you get it? Safety is so important. And of course, we need to make sure that people within the organizations value safety, that they are committed to safety. But another route that we can also take is to make sure that the safer option is also the most attractive option. Now, unfortunately, this is often not possible. But we can try to make the safer option at least a bit more attractive. And we can do this by making sure that this safer option has as little to no negative impact on the other goals like productivity and innovation. And this is exactly where big data can help us. So if we have a factor that we have identified as it might be problematic, it sometimes influences human behavior in such a way that the risk increases. Big data can help us to zoom in on that factor and to say exactly how big is this effect, what is the exact effect size. But even more importantly, it can help us to identify under which exact circumstances is this factor actually a problem, in which combination of circumstances, and when is it maybe not. Later on, I will give the example of a signal aspect. In the Netherlands, we have a lot of different signal aspects. And having a conclusion such as saying, this one specific signal aspect is dangerous, you cannot use it anymore, is very unfeasible advice. The chances of it being implemented is low. But big data helped us to see, okay, there's only a very specific combination of factors, including certain track speeds and certain scheduling, when the factor is indeed problematic. And in all these other situations, it is not. So go ahead, use it, except in these circumstances, and do not create this specific combination in the future. Another way in which big data can help us to support the organization and productivity and innovation, but in a safe way, is it allows us to monitor effects proactively. So we can make a change in one location and monitor and even intervene before an incident occurs. Now, this all sounds very nice, but I already mentioned big data projects do not always succeed. Excuse me. So what do disappointing big data projects look like? Well, for this presentation, I've made a very simple definition. It's when the results, they might be very fancy. You might have this nice-looking dashboard. In the beginning, everyone's like, wow, it's like magic. But then later on, the experts, the safety experts, look at it and they say, well, actually, we do not gain any usable insight from it. And that's the disappointment. Now, this can look a little bit differently for monitoring project or research project, but it's usually that no firm conclusion can be made or no new firm conclusion can be made. Or you might have this nice predictive model which has a 66% accuracy, which is actually really good, but in safety, it's often not enough. We often need a high level of precision and of certainty. I will clarify even more with 2 examples. These were part of my own research of my PhD. And it's about SPADs. We already discussed it, signal pass at danger events. Now, there are a lot of signals that you can pass at danger, but my research focused on the light aspects, so red aspect as in the picture. First, the monitoring project. So in the Netherlands, I already mentioned we have several aspects. So we do not only have red, yellow, and green, we also have yellow variations. This can be yellow, this can be yellow flashing, and this can be yellow in combination with a number. For example, here, yellow 4. Now, yellow 4 is already being widely used within the Netherlands. So in that sense, nothing new. But if we have the situation, we have a red aspect, then previous one is yellow, we know. But if the distance between the two is less than 400 meters, the rule in the Netherlands is that the previous one is also yellow. And we are talking about a track speed of 80 kilometers per hour. Now, what they wanted, for reasons other organizational goals, productivity and innovation, is you want to say, well, if the distance is less than 400 meters, but still bigger than 300, we do not want the previous one to be yellow, but we want it to be yellow 4 or yellow 4 flashing. Okay, nice idea. But of course, they wondered, will this increase the probability of a SPAD event? Here you see a little bit more realistically what the number looks like. So they already did a simulator study. They already had experts think about this, and they all said, it's probably not a problem. But we still want to make we still want to make sure. So they decided to change one location in the Netherlands. They made the actual infrastructure change, but monitor it for a number of months. And if that goes okay, we do the rest of the Netherlands. So how do you monitor this? Well, the obvious thing is to check the number of SPADs that occur. Kind of have to if you're monitoring SPAD risk. But it's, as we know, not all locations have a lot of SPADs. So you might be monitoring for 6 months, but have 0 SPADs. And you cannot conclude that the probability has decreased or not increased. So, but we do include it. And I must say, not only number of SPADs, but number of SPADs per red aspect approach. This is a much better measure than just the number of SPADs. But more interestingly is, of course, the proactive data. This is the real big data. And what we looked at is, does the number of near misses increase after the change? Or let's say the percentage of near misses. And we operationalized, so we measured near misses via a measure we developed, and this was called the maximum deceleration to SPAD. I will give a brief example in a minute. And what was really nice about this measure is that we could also use it to monitor a gradual change in train driver behavior. So not only see, oh no, more near misses, but also even more refined, even on lower level, would it gradually change and slowly go towards disaster. And we also had some subjective data, so some questionnaires to the train drivers. Now, very brief technical moment. Here we have an example of one red aspect approach. At the y-axis, we have speed in kilometers per hour. At the x-axis, we have meters to the red aspect. At 0, that's where the red aspect is. So what you can see is we start monitoring the red aspect approach on 1,000 meters in front of the signal. Now this train is going in about 125 kilometers per hour, and you can see its trajectory. Below, you see a graph of the actual deceleration. This is measured in meters per squared second. What you can see here, it's a little bit below 0.5. This is a passenger train, by the way. So this is like a mild, medium deceleration. At some point, well, it changes. And what we see is a very firm deceleration. I would not want to be in this train. It's even above 1.5, which is above some of our supposedly limits of maximum braking power. So this train was decelerating very quickly. Now, the last one is the really interesting one. This is our measure. This is the deceleration to SPAD. This is actually the required deceleration. And we can measure it for every data point. And what you see, if the actual deceleration is lower than the required deceleration to still stop in front of the red aspect, then the required deceleration goes up. So you see it going up, and then you see that the actual deceleration is above the required deceleration, so the required deceleration goes down again. So we always have a maximum value. And what we do, for each red aspect approach, we select maximum value, and we call this maximum deceleration to SPAD. So in this example, this is 0.79. This is high. This is very out of the ordinary. We actually use the criterion of 0.7 for near misses. Now, there are multiple reasons to pick certain criteria. So if you want to pick one, you can ask for some advice. But 0.7 is a good one. And this approach is actually not in the monitoring phase. This was just as an example. So what could we do now? We're not going to look at every individual approach. What we do is we have a box plot for each week. So we have box plots before the change and after the change. And maybe it's a bit hard to see, but there's a yellow line here. This is the 0.7 criterion line. And as you can see, there are no data points above it. So we did not have any near miss. But what's also really nice is that you can see that the box plots remain sort of, they're not going up, they're not jumping around, it's quite stable. So we do not see any change in train driver behavior with respect to the probability of a SPAD. Now, after the monitoring period, of course, we still do a final analysis. And here you see two plots, because one is for yellow 4 and one is for yellow 4 flashing, the way around. And we simply compare before and after. And what you see here is that there's a very minor difference, and the difference is actually to the safer direction. But even if it wasn't, it was still very much in the safe zone. And you can also see here 0.4, so our 0.7, if you have values here, they're very deviating. For these types of approach, I should add, and these track speeds. Now, I would call this project successful in terms of a big data project. Firstly, because in the final analysis, we could have this very firm conclusion for passenger trains. We could really say, with certainty, the safety level, or at least in terms of the probability of a SPAD, does not increase for passenger trains. And this is in contrast when you would only have, let's say, 0 SPADs to compare with, well, before, in the same period, we also had 0 SPADs. Then you could not make a firm conclusion. But maybe even better about this project was what we did in the monitoring phase. Because we made sure before we started monitoring, so before the change in the infrastructure, we had very clear rules about what was sort of dangerous and when we would need to pull the plug. We knew what our criterion was for a near miss. We knew what the percentage was. If the near miss percentage went above, then we need to pull the plug, and we knew who we needed to call. And the danger is, and this also happened in the preparation, because people thought I was a little bit nitpicking about why do we need to think about all of this before we start? And people tend to say and tend to think, we'll know what to do when we see it. They think that we just need to start looking and we'll get it. And if you have a very big effect towards the unsafe side, then yes, you will see it in the data. But this does not tend to happen. Data has noise, data has a little bit of fluctuations. So that fluctuation, if you do not think about it beforehand, can one cause unnecessary panic, or it doesn't, and people get too much used to it and do not actually intervene when it is relevant. And also it becomes very unclear about when can you decide it is still safe or not. So my advice would really be to think about this beforehand, even though people convince themselves that they'll know what to do when they see it. It just does not work that way. The second example, a little bit more brief. So this is really kind of my baby. This is my main research, and it's about the human factor. And you could say this is about the expectation of the train driver. Personally, I would not say this. I think we cannot measure the expectation of the train driver, and I do not think expectation of the train driver is in any way the problem. What I talk about, and what is also the thesis in the title of my thesis, is incidental learning. But this title also helps, does previous exposure to different signal aspects at the same location increase SPAD probability? So let's say this is the same location, and this is the stopping location where passengers get in and get out. Now this one is red, therefore the previous one is yellow, and in this example, the one before is yellow 8. So we have a train driver which approaches yellow 8, which means he needs to decelerate to 80 kilometers per hour at the next signal and then decelerate to standstill. Now let's say this distance, and given the track speed, a mild deceleration is sufficient. So the train driver comes to this location, sees yellow 8, mild deceleration, and everything goes fine. Next day, does it again, multiple times a day, and again, and again. And every time in this location, he sees yellow 8, and he does the mild deceleration, and everything is fine. Then one day, at the same location, it's not yellow 8, and it's yellow. Is there then a higher probability that he will respond as if it was yellow 8? Will he do the same manual behavior that he almost always does in this location? So this was a hypothesis, and we tested this. We used the same measure I mentioned previously, so the maximum deceleration to SPAD, and we also used incident data. 6 years of incident data. Now you might think, big deal, 6 years of SPAD, that's not a lot. Well, we included all the red aspect approaches. So imagine all the red aspect approaches of all trains in the Netherlands for 6 years. My computer could not handle this, but I had help. So what was so successful about this one is that we had firm evidence that indeed this effect is present. So it's not a new effect. So there were safety experts who had hunches. Thought, oh, these numbers, they're not always good. But they could never give firm evidence. This data gave firm evidence. And also, we could see it is actually a big effect. There is, compared to other factors, this is really increases the SPAD probability a lot. So we need to think about this. But thankfully, we didn't have to say, stop using all these numbers altogether. This would have been a very big problem, because the Netherlands actually wants to use them more. But what we could see is, okay, this effect, which is sometimes really big deal, only occurs in combination with certain track speeds, scheduling, and some other infrastructure-related aspects. So there are actually a lot of circumstances where there's no problem. And thankfully, the circumstance in which the Netherlands wants to use these additional amounts of yellow number aspects, it is no problem. So we did not interfere with innovation, but we did say, when you're going to make so many changes, make sure you do not accidentally introduce these types of situations, which are currently not a lot in the Netherlands, but we need to keep it that way. So I mentioned big data projects do not automatically succeed. Why? Why are some successful and why are others not? Well, of course, you can have some technical limitations. This is not my expertise. I'm a cognitive psychologist. So naturally, I focus on the human factors. So I think about which factors influence the human behavior, and more specifically, the human cognition of the researchers, the safety experts, and the data analysts. So in this recording that I made for you, this second presentation, I delve into this. And the main takeaway, to tell you already, is that the quality of the operationalization is critical for the success of the big data project in safety. And operationalization is the process of turning an abstract concept, like the probability of a SPAD, in something you can actually measure, like the maximum deceleration to SPAD. And this is very difficult. And this can go wrong, and this can go wrong without anyone noticing. So I give this clarification in this presentation about what types of expertise can influence the quality of the operationalization and some circumstances that are involved in this. So for today, I hope you've gotten excited to start using big data for safety, or perhaps even to start using big data for safety again, if you've ever been disappointed. But I hope you will also look at this second presentation, because I like this picture at the bottom, because using big data for safety is still quite a young field. We still need to build this map towards successful use of big data. And in this second presentation, I give some key insights in what you need to do. But hopefully, as an industry, we can build upon that so that we eventually have a great map and can start to use big data for safety more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. Very interesting presentation about the use of the big data and how this use could be potentially interesting for safety. And now we are the last but not least speaker, and sorry, I always wanted to say that. Our speaker is Geir-Rune Samstad. He holds a master's degree in environmental chemistry, and I don't need to tell you why a chemist is useful in transport. He used to work as an inspector in the Norwegian Environmental Protective Agency, and is now working for the Norwegian Railway Safety Authority. As the lead auditor, is performing audits and inspection of all railway undertakings and infrastructure managers in Norway. He is also responsible for the risks-based supervision strategy and program. The title of his presentation is Learning from Near Misses, a case stage for developing a reporting culture at the national level. And with such an interesting title, you have definitively picked up our curiosity, so please join us, Geir-Rune, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ilaria. Well, it's late, and hopefully I'm not going to bore you. Talking about reporting culture and reporting of incidents and accidents, it's maybe a step back before the big data discussion, but I'm going to talk about in Norway, we feel that we have succeeded in reporting incidents and accidents, and I'm going to talk about the success, why we have succeeded, and also how do we follow up. Because even though we have succeeded in getting a high number of reporting incidents and accidents, there's still room for improvement. We can even get more data. And I have to also say that even though we have a high number of incidents and accidents, Norway is not a dangerous country for train driving. Some background, some historical background and perspective. Reporting of deficiency and points of improvement was a big topic in the 90s in the most industries as part of the quality management and establishment of ISO 9000, as probably many of you already know. And the principles of plan, do, check, act, it was in every management's mind. And this way of thinking found its way in Norway and probably in other countries as well, found its way into the railway sector during the late 90s. We had this new regulation called it was a safety management regulation in 1999, and that stated that the companies had the responsibility for the safety and that they should work in a continuous improvement matter and a systematic approach. And a part of that is, of course, reporting of incidents and accidents. And that regulation was introduced in the day before Christmas in 1999, and it also got more important because 2 weeks later we had a major accident in Norway, the last big accident with 19 fatalities, and that they concluded working with incidents was important to prevent accidents. So that together, this new regulation together with this incident created a new way of thinking on reporting of incidents and accidents and learning from them. But I think we still have too much emphasis on the number of reporting and maybe not learning from them. So there's still a long way to go. As I said, the responsibility for safety lies within the railway and the infrastructure, railway undertaking and the railway infrastructure manager. And incidents and accidents, they are part of the tools for systematically working on reducing risks. They go as a part in the risk assessment and, of course, when it comes to learning from them. And as an example, we can mention, the reporting in Norway. We have a good, as I said, we have a good culture for reporting. We gather about 25,000 unique reports annually. It's a bit over 30,000 in total. And us as an NSA gives us a unique insight into the major risks and challenges within the sector. We also use lack of reported incidents and accidents as a symptom of failure in safety management, because when we have this number of data, we know what is a typical reported incidents and accidents from freight trains, and some companies are good at reporting some types of incidents, and others are not. And then we don't know that they don't have any reports. They probably haven't a good culture for reporting. Yeah, and of course, understanding accidents and incidents. You probably heard about the iceberg theory and etc. Because for an accident, there are a large number of incidents and incidents, and you should work with these incidents or near misses in a systematic way, as much as you do with the actual accidents. I think it's been mentioned earlier today. Even when you have to gather the incidents and try to find the root causes and work with them, and also find measures so they don't repeat the incidents. prevent the repetition. And also, when you implement a measure, of course, you have to evaluate the effects of these measures. Do they prevent the repetition of the incident? I have an example here on SPADs. SPADs is probably a popular example. I could have used level crossings, but we expect the RUs to analyze and collect and trend the incidents, so they can identify points in either in their safety management or in the trend lines, or maybe weaknesses in training when they're trending the incidents, to look at the pattern. What do they indicate? And maybe then you can see a bigger picture in what type of measures you need. And of course, when you implement a measure, you need to evaluate the effect of the measure. And if it doesn't prevent repetition, or it doesn't improve the issue, you have to maybe find another measure. This is part of working systematic. Key stages for developing a reporting culture. I think a good reporting culture is a key to success when it comes to maintaining and improving safety. And this has to be followed by a systematic work with the incidents, as I mentioned in the previous slide. And also from the NSA, in reporting of incidents and accidents and following up is always part of our supervision activities. I think that's also one of the key to success, to always emphasize the importance of reporting. And measuring a safety culture within a company, you can do that by seeing how do you get the reports, how high degree is the reporting culture. Or is it, do they report because it's mandatory, or do they report because it's in a benefit? I think we can look to the aviation sector, and because you have this culture for reporting near misses without any, it doesn't create any problems for you if you say that you made a mistake. But as I said, there's still room for improvement. One thing is what actually happens during the train operations, but we still feel that there is a lack of reporting on technical faults. And I'm not talking about things that is being discovered during maintenance, but the things that are, as I said here, it's a luck that this didn't break down during operation, and it's discovered during maintenance. Because that is something that has a potential of being making a major accident. So we expect them to work actively with corrective maintenance. And also then measure the risk contribution from the technical issues. And this is really important when it comes to, for instance, monitoring maintenance, because as we see, the sector there's an increased use of contractors. And I will also say that another room for improvement is the sharing between the sector, because there's especially in Norway, I think they're not good at sharing information from incidents. They keep it to themselves for different reasons. So sharing between every company, I think, is the key to success. Almost like saying that sharing is caring for safety. Okay. I would just like to state the obvious, maybe, that a good reporting culture is an indicator for a good safety culture. Okay. Thank you.
You can stay on stage, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geir-Rune. Martynas, come back. And I don't know if you can call Julia, is not outside the room. Okay. Okay, we can start the Q&A session, and I don't know if there is some question from the audience. Okay, I don't know if there is the micro for the colleague. Here. Thank you very much. And you can say your name, position, organization, and everything.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Amir Hajbuluri. I'm an associate professor of information systems at University of Western Sweden. I have a question to you. You were mentioning something about interactive material for safety training or so. Could you elaborate a little bit more about what kind of material is this? And also if this material is something which is standardized for your organization, or if it is something that is universally used in similar organizations such as yours. Thank you.
Yes. For this case, I don't know if yes, okay. Yes, in this case, we prepare for our managers material in which I think it's a quite universal material. I am talking about responsibilities and the tasks for the managers in the safety field. And it is a material just like a checklist with basic principles how management should made their decisions according to which rules, with some practical steps, with some practical examples, how we should act in one or another situation. And this material is not such kind of a PDF and so on. We have a digitized version of it. So if you want to have to find some type of question, you just can browse some titles and so on, and you will see the answer about the topic, what is interesting for you.
I see. So in what sense is that interactive?
Yeah, interactive, it is a digitized material. So it's not a static version of an information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Is there any other question from the audience? Here, please, and on the first row.
Thank you very much, Rafael WMU. I just have a small question, which is related to also what we've seen with Nelson just before you. Before, Nelson was highlighting some difference of interpretation, what is an SMS, and he was highlighting things that in the companies, people tend to feel, oh, this is very good, this is holistic, this is human factors related. On the other hand, what you see is the operators, what they see is a burden, it's a bureaucratic exercise. And here I would like to link this with a very nice paper written a few years back by Decker, which is called Bureaucratization of Safety. My question is, are we not in a moment, it's because we have a lot of capacity to process information that we tend also to bureaucratize safety and requiring a lot from the operators and not giving them so much back from what is expected. So do you see this as a trend or the risk, and how do you overcome this problem of bureaucratization of safety? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if...
I can start, because a trend, what we see in Norway when it comes to safety management systems, is that I think our use are overcomplicating making the safety management systems. You have these small companies that want to start activities, operations, and they want to make a safety management system. And the first thing they do, they get a consultant. They don't make it themselves. And that's the biggest mistake they can do. They have to build it by themselves and make their experiences themselves. And then they can build it on experience. So they forget to keep it simple. And that's a big problem, because you get a safety management system that no one owns. And no one tries to live by it, no one, yeah. So that's a big problem.
Yeah, what I was thinking about is things like data and big data, it's another tool. And like any tool, you can use it the right way or the wrong way. It's like you can use a knife in the kitchen to cut cheese, and it can be a dangerous weapon. And that's the same for big data. If you start using data to check operators, to push them even more, to punish, it's possible. But I don't think anyone in this room wants to do this. Personally, I like to use big data to make sure that the operators are not burdened. So in my research, we look at what can the infrastructure manager do. So my research was done by the infrastructure manager. And everyone wants, why? It's about train drivers. But actually the power to make life better for the train drivers was at the infrastructure manager hand. So in that case, I think we can actually use big data to get it away from the operators, but we need to be wary about the other way around as well, especially with automation.
Talking from my perspective, I think that too much documents have a threat for the safety, and we should understand this, that too much documents, too much procedures aren't not always is the best way to manage some type of risks. Because when you introduce a new employee, tons of documents, the safety instructions, the safety procedures, and so on, it just get lost between them. And first of all, I think we should make it a more simpler task. We should make more visualizations in our documents. We should use new technologies and so on to make sure that this information, what people get, we can learn from it, not just read and just put back on the table and so on. And I think what I presented, I don't know, as I start to indicate, one threat goes from regulation. It is how we must to regulate our activities. And the other part is how industrial revolution tools can help us. For example, as my colleague said, we have big data, models and so on. So maybe we do not have very detailed maintenance procedures and so on. So I think in the future, these documents will be simplified. We will be a lot of smaller, and we have to make sure what we would do from our best to make sure that the documents would be actual for the people and we could learn from it, and not to load them with tons of papers. And during the event, we will say that, oh yeah, in 110 page, there was written that you must act in this way, so that's your fault. So I think we should go from it.
Thank you. If I can add something from my point of view, from a national safety authority point of view, The SMS must be customized on the organization. We always repeat, there is no a safety management system good for everybody. So it is the reason why I agree with my colleagues that safety management system must be simple and effective. I don't know if there is a... Okay, here, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jan Politiek. I'm from the Netherlands, from Arriva, the Netherlands, belonging for Arriva Group. Very good presentation, all three. I'm happy to see the new generation, with all respect. Yes.
Pay attention.
Yeah, well, I'm 60, I'm 61, so I'm not afraid of telling it, but I think it's good for this topic and this for safety also, very important. But talking about near miss, the last presentation, which was also very good, a little bit older generation. We use front CCTV in the Netherlands for more than 10 years. We use it with partners for incidents, accidents, but also for near miss. It's amazing what it brings, this new innovative. I'm very curious, as Greece and in Norway, is it used or going to be used? How do you think about it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you repeat? I didn't understand.
Front CCTV cameras. We use it for near miss. We have examples, for instance, for ambulances and police and fire brigade. They say, oh, we don't cross barriers when they're done. And then we say, oh, we have images. No, our boys and girls don't do that. Well, I can show you. And we use this for training, of course, because they're mostly young persons who have adrenaline. There's an example, but also for accidents or other things. It's a total new chapter of investigation, but you talked about near miss, that's why I touched it. Yeah, thank you.
I don't think I have any remark. We don't use it in Norway,
No?
but no.
It's not allowed, or you're not thinking about it?
But well, we just get the reports. I think it's the companies that have to do that. We don't use it as an NSA. We don't have those data.
Okay. Well, I could show you some images later on if you want. And in Greece, are they used or not in the operators?
Yeah, we are using it, and we are trying to also implementing new tools. And video cameras not only shows and stored the video about the violations and so on, but the cameras itself can detect, for example, there are some things stored in the on the track, and it sends the signal about it to the train driver. So the cameras is, I think, we are trying to develop it a more innovation solution. Not just only record the video, but also to make sure that the train drivers can get the immediate actions according to the risks.
Yeah, okay. In various years, even we evaluate some spares with the driver. So I think it's very interesting and perhaps a new chapter. I'm more than happy to share it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are some questions from online. The first is, in the LTG's digital tool, are the reports anonymous?
Yes, there are two options. One is anonymous reports and the other is not. When we started and when we presented such type of a solution, the big part of messages were anonymous, but during the years, right now, one of the biggest part is the people who write their names and so on. So I think if you want to install and develop that type of tools, this option should be, because at the start, people just we just don't want to get to be known.
Okay. Another question from internet, from Chris Jackson. I don't know if it is he is here or not. Anyway, trending analysis takes time to determine underlying issues. Is there a risk then the level of reporting could go down if people don't see immediate action?
Yeah. The simple answer is yes. But I
You
think,
can say something.
but I think it's really important that you give feedback when people report. You have to give feedback immediately,
Yes,
even though you don't have an action.
Yeah.
You just give feedback that this is taken into consideration.
we heard also in the previous sessions the importance of the feedback. So the answer is yes. Okay. Another question for Julia. What is the future of the big data with smart wearable and implementation of more and more technologies in the steering cab?
Yeah, I've been looking at this question. It's a really nice one. There are two things in there. What I want to focus first on is more technology in the steering cabin, because it's also into automation. More and more we're going into automation, also ERTMS, but also self-driving trains. And for the foreseeable future, it will be with a train driver in there. But actually, at lunch, we talked about the automation paradox, which says that we tend to automate the simple things, and then for the things that are very difficult to automate and which are actually very difficult also for the human, we leave that up to the human. So it becomes even more difficult because they're not doing the simple things, and then suddenly everything starts blinking, and the computer says, "Now it's your turn." What is happening? So one of the risks also related to the previous question, my fear would be if we would have the self-driving trains, and we would have the train driver in there, and we make him or her responsible of being always hyper-vigilant, and then we add a wearable device to make sure to check whether they're also always hyper-vigilant. That would be like a Big Brother, or what is the 1984 disaster books. So we need to avoid that kind of things. I like the idea of wearables and measuring stress levels and fatigue and stuff like that, but only if it's used anonymously and for research purposes to see the effect, for example, of scheduling timetable, and to make sure we're not using it as a way to compensate for the gaps that automation leaves for us. So I think there are opportunities, but also risks.
Okay, thank you. And another question for you. What data have you been missing to improve the data inspection? Is the Netherlands a heaven for railway big data analysts?
It's not yet, but I think we are very lucky in the data we do have. We do have quite a lot of data, especially for passenger trains. We are missing a lot of data for the freight trains, which is, of course, also a very big risk also for SPADs. But what I would like to do, and I no longer work at ProRail, so this is sort of a crushed dream, but I think it would be very good to use big data to look at engineering work accidents. Because it's very hard to get a grip on all the accidents that occur among the contractors. And I think if we can start to measure this better, and how do you measure time pressure? Can we use big data, not necessarily as a wearable, but in any different ways? And then the challenge is not only getting the data, but also thinking about how do you measure this? It's what I mentioned, the operationalization. How should you measure the probability of a work accident? Don't just simply count the number. What do you compare it to? Do you compare it to the number of worked hours? And how do you measure? So not yet I haven't, but I think it could definitely become one.
Okay, thank you. We go to Netherlands for studying, everybody of us. A question for Geir-Rune. You told us that there is a good reporting culture in Norway and gave the figure of 25,000 occurrence reports annually. How do you use this data? It is interesting.
That's a good question, because I didn't mention it in my presentation, but we use it as a basis for our annual supervision strategy. We use it to as an indicator for where is the highest risks within the sector.
Okay, so for defining the major area of risks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also try to divide them into different topics and share them with the industry as well. But that's a point. That's something we can even do better, because we can give it back since they are so. I think we are lucky that we get this high number of occurrences. So we can do more in giving it back, dividing it in train lines and yeah.
Okay. Is there any question? No, it's time to finish. Okay, I will thank the three speakers of this session, and I think their points of view are very interesting for good in detail, deeper in detail in this topic, the monitoring and learning from monitoring. So please clap your hands for them, and thank you.